The phone rang at 5:47 on a Tuesday morning, which meant trouble. Walter Brennan had his coffee halfway to his mouth when the kitchen landline started up, loud and wrong, and in the pre-dawn quiet. The wood stove ticked and settled. NPR murmured something about wheat futures. Outside, February had the thermometer down to 19 degrees, frost thick on the windows. Brennan? The voice was young, nervous. Derek something or other, the new manager down at First National. Your wife is here, with a man who looks exactly like you. Walter set the mug down. Coffee sloshed over the rim. 30 years. Marcus had been gone 30 years. I'm on my way. He grabbed his truck keys off the hook by the door, didn't stop for a coat. The sleet had started, and County Road 9 would be hell, but he didn't slow down. What the hell was Marcus doing back in town, and why was Carol with him? The truck fishtailed twice on County Road 9, but Walter kept his foot down. Sleet hammered the windshield. The wipers couldn't keep up. He drove in his flannel shirt, no coat, hands tight on the wheel. Marcus. The name sat in his chest like a stone. His twin brother, identical down to the fingerprints and the way they both couldn't stand lima beans. The brother who'd stolen $30,000 from their father's safe in 1995 and vanished like smoke. The brother their daddy died without speaking to in 1998. The will explicit, nothing to Marcus, everything to Walter. And now he was at First National with Carol, Walter's wife of 37 years. The bank parking lot had more cars than usual for a Tuesday morning. Carol's Camry was there. Next to it, a rental sedan with Florida plates. Walter killed the engine. Sat there a moment, sleet ticking against the roof. Through the glass doors, he could see people inside. A crowd. His hand found the door handle. The cold hit him like a fist when he stepped out. The bell above the door chimed when Walter walked in. Every head turned. There must have been a dozen people in the lobby. Farmers waiting to make deposits, Joanne Mueller from the church, old Eddie who ran the hardware store. They all went quiet, staring. At the counter, a man in Walter's good church suit was signing something. Navy blazer, pressed khakis. Walter recognized that suit. Hadn't worn it since his daddy's funeral. The man turned. Walter's face looked back at him. Marcus smiled. The same smile he'd used on their mother when he wanted something, when he'd practiced her signature on permission slips back in '68. The smile that said he'd already won, and you just didn't know it yet. Walt, Marcus said, like they'd seen each other yesterday. Like he hadn't stolen from their family and disappeared for 3 decades. Beside him, Carol stood in her good coat. She wouldn't look at Walter, just stared at the counter, shoulders tight. Can I help you, sir? Derek, the new branch manager, couldn't be more than 32, stepped between them. His suit jacket was too tight across the shoulders. He had that look young men get when they're scared and trying not to show it. I'm Walter Brennan, Walter said. His voice came out steady. 40 years of staying calm in a crisis. That's my account he's accessing. Derek glanced at his computer screen. Sir, We've already verified Mr. Brennan's identity. The signatures match. His ID scanned properly. That's my brother, my twin, Marcus. Your twin. Derek's hand went to his tie, adjusting it. I see. That's Mr. Brennan, I'm going to need to see your identification to verify which account is actually yours. The lobby was dead silent. Joanne had her hand over her mouth. Eddie stood frozen by the deposit slips. At window 3, Denise Morrison, who'd worked at this bank for 40 years, who'd been here when Walter opened his first savings account in 1978, had both hands covering her face. Her shoulders shook. Marcus slipped something into his jacket pocket. Walter caught a flash of gold, his father's Masonic ring, the one with JTB engraved inside. 1947, the year Daddy joined the lodge. The ring that had been on his father's finger in the casket. The transaction is complete, Derek said, still looking at his screen. A cashier's check for $47,000. Carol turned then. Her eyes met Walter's for half a second before she looked away. There was something in her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Or maybe just the look of someone who'd already made her choice. We'll be going now, Marcus said. He took Carol's elbow, guided her toward the door like a gentleman, like he had every right. The bell chimed again when they left. Walter stood there in his work boots and flannel shirt, Carhartt jacket, back in the truck. The crowd stared. Some of them had known him since high school. He'd installed the vault system in this very bank back in '89. Derek hadn't even been born yet. Mr. Brennan, Derek pulled at his collar. Sir, I apologize for the confusion. If you could come to my office, we can sort out the account verification. I'll need to see your driver's license, birth certificate, any documentation you have. Through the glass doors, Walter watched Marcus's rental pull out of the lot, Carol in the passenger seat. Not looking back. Denise was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. Sir? Derek gestured toward his office. We really need to establish which account belongs to whom. And that Walter had been banking here since 1978. 26 years before, Derek was probably old enough to have a checking account. How the hell do you prove you're yourself? Walter spent Saturday and Sunday at his kitchen table with 40 years of paperwork spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Birth certificate, military discharge papers from '79, the DD-214 he'd kept in a fireproof box, tax returns going back to 1980, every year organized in manila folders, his father's will, typed on legal paper dated March 1998. I hereby bequeath my farm property, all 320 acres, to my son, Walter James Brennan. To Marcus I leave nothing. The words still hurt to read. Not because of the inheritance. Walter would have given Marcus half if he'd just asked, if he'd just been decent about it, but because of what it said about trust, about who their daddy believed in at the end. Walter made a signature comparison sheet, his own name written 10 times. Then, Marcus's forgeries from when they were kids, the ones he'd practiced copying their mother's handwriting, the grocery list notes with that specific flourish on the capital B. Marcus had always been good at pretending to be someone else. Carol was gone all weekend. Visiting her sister in Terre Haute, she'd said on Friday night, needed to get away after the stress. Walter wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe that Marcus had fooled her too. Monday morning, he met with Derek and the regional manager, a man named Tom who did all his talking through a Bluetooth headset and kept checking his phone. They promised an investigation, promised to freeze any unusual activity, promised a call within 48 hours. Carol came home Monday afternoon, made pot roast for dinner. She hadn't made pot roast in months, maybe longer. But there it was, his favorite meal, the way his mother used to make it, with carrots and potatoes and that gravy thick enough to stand a spoon in. She'd even made cornbread, wore the blue sweater he'd told her he liked, back when they were courting. "Walt," she said, setting the plate in front of him. Her hand touched his shoulder, light, tentative. "We'll get through this. Together." The pot roast smelled like Sunday dinners from 30 years ago. The kitchen was warm. Carol poured him coffee without asking, the way she used to. "Derek said he was confused," she said, sitting down across from him. "That Marcus told him you two had been estranged, that he was trying to reconcile with the family." Her voice broke a little. I thought he'd changed. He showed up at church last month, at the volunteer meeting, said he wanted to make amends with you, that he'd been sober 5 years and was working the steps." Walter cut into the pot roast. Steam rose up. "Did you sign anything? Any papers?" Carol's hand paused, holding her fork. Marcus mentioned something about estate planning, making sure we were both protected if anything happened to you. He said you'd been meaning to update the will. We updated the will in 2019. She set the fork down, stood up, started clearing dishes, even though Walter had barely touched his food. "I can't remember every piece of paper I sign, Walter. You're always so suspicious. So controlling about everything?" Her hands shook. The plates rattled when she stacked them. Walter looked at the pot roast, at the cornbread she'd made from scratch, at the blue sweater. Maybe Marcus had manipulated her. Maybe this was real. 37 years of marriage. Had to count for something. She went to bed early. Said she had a headache. Wednesday at noon, Walter's phone rang. He was in the workshop, trying to sand a table leg, trying to pretend things were normal. "Walt," Denise Morrison's voice was shaking. "I'm calling from the Walmart parking lot. They were back yesterday. Marcus and Carol. Different branch, over in Hartsville." The sandpaper slipped from Walter's hand. "Carol had a whole folder," Denise said. "Utility bills in your name. From an address in Clearwater, Florida. They opened a line of credit, $180,000. Against the farm." Walter heard himself breathing, heard the February wind rattling the barn siding. "The signature on the power of attorney," Denise's voice cracked. "Walt, I've been a teller for 40 years. I know forgery when I see it. But the manager at Hartsville, he's new too. He didn't even question it." Walter drove home, checked the bedroom closet. Carol's winter clothes were gone, the good suitcases, her mother's jewelry box, the one she'd cried over when her mama died in 2015, empty on the dresser. On the kitchen table, a note in her handwriting, the same loops and curves he'd seen on grocery lists and Christmas cards for 37 years. "You were always more married to that damn farm than to me? Marcus sees me. Marcus listens. We'll be in touch about the divorce." Walter read it twice, 3 times. In the garage, he checked the coffee can he kept hidden in the freezer. Old Depression-era habit his daddy taught him. The $1,840 was still there. His checking account was frozen, the bank letter said. Pending investigation. He tried calling Sarah, his daughter from his first marriage, the one who'd stopped returning his calls after he married Carol. 7 voicemails now. She never picked up. Tom, his son, didn't answer either. Carol's phone went straight to a disconnected message. Wednesday evening, Walter sat at the kitchen table. Carol's coffee mug was still in the cupboard. Her note was on the table, the paper creased where he'd gripped it. Somewhere in Florida, Marcus was using Walter's name to sell land that 4 generations of Brennans had bled for. And Carol, the woman who'd stood beside him in the courthouse in 1988 and promised to love and honor, was helping him do it. How do you mourn someone who's still alive but was never who you thought? Thursday morning, Walter drove to the sheriff's office. The county building smelled like burnt coffee and copy machine ink. Ray Holbrook had been sheriff for 16 years now. Before that, he and Walter had served in the National Guard together, 1975 to 85, weekend warriors who'd saved each other's ass during a training accident in 79. Ray owed him. Walt. Ray didn't get up from his desk, didn't offer coffee. I heard about the situation at the bank. Situation. Walter stayed standing. Marcus is committing fraud, Ray. Identity theft, forgery. From what I understand, it's a civil dispute. Marital issue, mostly. Ray shuffled papers on his desk. You and Carol having problems. That's between you two. Your brother being back in town complicates things, I know. But he forged my signature on a power of attorney. That's a crime. Ray finally looked up. There was something in his face. Discomfort. Maybe guilt. My nephew married Carol's daughter last year. Stephanie. You know that. Walter hadn't known that. Hadn't been invited to the wedding. This is family business, Walt. And I gotta be careful how I step into family business. Ray leaned back in his chair. Had a case back in 87. Woman claimed her husband was stealing her inheritance. I thought she was just bitter about the divorce, didn't investigate proper. Sometimes I still think about that. So investigate this one proper. I'll look into it, Ray said. But his tone said he wouldn't. Right now, it sounds like civil court territory. You need a good divorce lawyer. Walter left without another word. He tried 3 lawyers that afternoon. Called from his truck, working through the yellow pages. First one. Marital disputes are tricky, Mr. Brennan. Sounds like a he said, she said situation. My retainer starts at $5,000. Second one. Identity theft between family members is hard to prove. Very expensive to litigate. You'd need a forensic accountant, expert witnesses. And third one. I'd need $15,000 up front. No guarantees on outcome. Could take years. The coffee can in the freezer had $1,800. His accounts were frozen. He was living on cash, rationing groceries. Friday, Derek called with an update. The investigation is ongoing, Mr. Brennan. No timeline yet. Regional management is reviewing the security protocols. We appreciate your patience. Patience. Walter had been patient his whole life. Measure twice, cut once, do it right the first time. Trust the system to work. The system was failing him 6 ways from Sunday. Sunday morning, he went to church. 5th row right side, same pew he'd sat in for 36 years. Carol's seat beside him was empty. The whole congregation seemed to notice. Mrs. Henderson turned all the way around to stare. Whispers rippled through the sanctuary like wind through wheat. After the service, fellowship hour, coffee in the basement. The same terrible coffee they'd been serving since 1982. Joanne Muller saw him coming and suddenly needed to be across the room. Ms. Henderson stood in a circle of women, talking loud enough for Walter to hear. Well, I heard there's 2 of them. Twins. How's anyone supposed to know which one's which? The church bulletin still listed Carol as volunteer coordinator, her name in print right there for everyone to see. Eddie from the hardware store was the only one who approached, put a hand on Walter's shoulder. Don't know what's going on, Walt, but I know you're not a liar. Worked enough church projects with you to know that. Walter's throat was too tight to answer, just nodded. He left before they served the cake. Saturday afternoon. 4th day mostly alone. The workshop was cold despite the space heater. February wind found every gap in the barn siding. Walter sat on his work stool, hands on the bench, not building anything, just sitting. The coffee can was down to $140. His phone hadn't rung in 2 days. The radio played between stations, static, crackling. He should turn it off, should do something. Build something. Move. Outside the window, a cardinal sang, first one he'd seen this season. Bright red against the gray sky, alone on a fence post. His father's voice in his head from the hospital bed in 98. Truth outlasts liars, son. It's patient. But how patient can a man be when he's 67 years old with maybe 20 years left, and he's spending them proving he exists? The file folders sat on the kitchen table, visible through the barn door. All that evidence, all that truth, and nobody listening. What do you build when everything you built can be taken? The sun was setting. 4th evening of isolation nearly done. Then, headlights swept across the barn wall. A car in the driveway. Walter stood up, confused. Who shows up when everyone's already gone? The barn door opened. Cold air rushed in. A woman's silhouette, backlit by headlights, carrying a cardboard box. Walt, Denise Morrison said, we need to talk. Denise set the box on Walter's kitchen table. Cardboard, the kind banks used for storing old files, labeled in her neat handwriting, duplicate records, 2009 to 2024. Coffee? Walter asked. Black, no sugar. She pulled off her gloves, fingers stiff from the cold. I've been keeping these in my basement for 15 years. Management called me paranoid. Said I was old-fashioned, resistant to going digital. Walter started the coffee pot. Outside, full dark now. Just the two of them in the kitchen, the overhead light buzzing faintly. My daughter Ashley, Denise said, opening the box. She got scammed in 2019, identity theft. They took $15,000 from her account, used her social security number, opened credit cards, the whole thing. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled out file folders. The bank, not First National, different one, they did nothing. Said they couldn't prove the charges were unauthorized. Ashley's still paying off that debt. But she spread papers across the table. Bank records, withdrawal slips, inquiry logs. I swore that day I'd never stay silent if I saw something like that again. Denise looked up at Walter. Your brother's been asking about your accounts since April 2010. And Walter's hand froze, reaching for coffee mugs. Courtesy inquiries, they're called. Someone comes in, says their family, needs to verify account information. We're supposed to log it. Most people don't. She pointed to the first page. But I did, every single time. April 2010. Walter tried to remember. That was right after Carol started volunteering at the church, the food pantry committee. Every 6 to 8 months, Denise continued, like a clockwork. At first it was just questions. Does Walter Brennan still bank here? What kind of accounts does he have? Then it escalated, trying to verify balances, asking about joint account holders, looking at signature cards. She pulled out another folder. Photocopies of signature cards, dated and organized. I started making copies of anything with Marcus's name on it, even just his inquiries. My manager said I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust the system more, stop wasting time on paperwork no one would ever need. Her voice hardened. The system failed my daughter. I wasn't going to let it fail you. Walter poured the coffee. His hands were steady, but his chest felt tight. How many inquiries? 37 over 14 years. The frequency increased after 2018. Almost monthly by 2023. She laid out more papers. And look at these, signature cards. Walter's name, signed by someone practicing. The early ones from 2010 were crude, close, but not quite right. By 2024, they were nearly perfect. He was practicing your signature, Denise said. Progressive improvement, like someone training for a competition. The coffee pot beeped. Walter filled 2 mugs, passed one to Denise. She wrapped both hands around it, warming them. Derek ignored 17 automated fraud alerts last year, she said. The system flagged transactions as suspicious. He cleared everyone without investigation. The regional manager, Tom, he's been pushing metrics over security. I've got the emails. Tom, you have emails from Tom? Carbon copies. I BCC myself on anything that looks wrong. A thin smile. Old-fashioned isn't always bad. Walter sat down, looked at 15 years of evidence spread across his mother's kitchen table. All the proof that he wasn't crazy, that his instincts had been right. Carol's signatures are in here too, Denise said quietly. On joint account changes, 2011, 2015, 2019, 23, progressive authorization. Small access at first, then more and more, until by last year, she had full access to everything. They'd been married 23 years by then. I've already contacted the State Banking Commission, Denise said. Saturday morning. Their fraud investigator, his name is Ryan Walsh, been doing this 15 years. He wants to see all of this Monday morning. 9 a.m., downtown office. You didn't have to do this. Walter's voice came out rough. You could lose your job, your pension. You're what, 6 months from retirement? 5 months and 3 weeks. Denise met his eyes. Bank lawyers already called me Friday afternoon. Said if I pursue this, they'll fight my retirement benefits. Call it misconduct, keeping unauthorized copies. Then why? Because some things matter more than money. She took a sip of coffee. Wouldn't be much of a retirement knowing I let this happen, knowing I stayed quiet when I could have helped. The kitchen was warm. The coffee pot burbled gently. Outside, the wind had died down. There's something else, Denise said. She pulled out a document from the bottom of the stack. Florida address first appeared in our system December 23. Utility bills, in your name. Clearwater apartment. Credit applications using your social security number. Walter took the paper, his name, his social, an address he'd never seen before. The timeline proves premeditation, Denise said. This wasn't opportunistic. Your brother's been planning this for over a decade. And Carol, she paused. Carol introduced him to that church volunteer group in March 2010, 1 month before his first inquiry. 1 month. Walter sat back in his chair, 14 years. Carol had been planning this for 14 years. Walsh said, if the Florida connection proves interstate crime, the FBI gets involved. Denise gathered the papers back into organized stacks. Identity theft across state lines, that's federal jurisdiction. He's already contacted an agent in Jacksonville who specializes in elder financial exploitation. Elder exploitation. Walter almost laughed. I'm 67, not ancient. Oh, to the law, anyone over 65 qualifies. She smiled, sad and small. Welcome to the club. They sat in silence for a moment. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Monday morning, Denise said. 9 a.m. I'll meet you at the Banking Commission office. Bring all those papers from your table. After she left, Walter stood at the window, watching her taillights disappear down the driveway. The cardinal was gone from the fence post. Too dark to see much of anything now. But in the kitchen, 15 years of evidence sat in neat stacks. Proof, documentation. The truth in black and white. His phone buzzed. A text from Ray. Can we talk tomorrow evening? Walter stared at the message. Ray, who'd dismissed this as family business 3 days ago. Ray, who'd chosen his nephew's feelings over investigating fraud. He didn't answer. Not yet. First, sleep. Then Monday, the Banking Commission. Then they'd see what Ray had to say. When documentation finally beat charm, could truth actually win? Monday morning at the State Banking Commission went exactly like Denise said it would. Ryan Walsh, mid-40s, accountant's precision, 15 years, investigating fraud, spread the documents across a conference room table and worked through them methodically. This is institutional negligence, he said, tapping Derek's ignored fraud alerts. And this, the timeline of Marcus's inquiries, this is organized conspiracy. By 10 a.m., FBI Special Agent Rosa Torres had arrived from Jacksonville. 42, sharp eyes, a notepad she filled with careful handwriting. Identity theft across state lines, she said. Wire fraud, elder exploitation. If this holds up, it's federal. By noon, they'd filed formal complaints. Subpoenas were being drafted. Walsh promised to coordinate with the FBI. Torres said she'd need to review everything, but preliminarily it looked solid. Most victims don't have this level of documentation, Torres told Walter as they left. Your organization made our job easier. 40 years installing security system, Walter said. Learn to document. In the parking lot, Denise squeezed his arm. See you tomorrow, Walt. We're going to get them. Walter drove home, ate a sandwich, tried not to hope too hard. At 6 p.m., headlights turned into his driveway, not a patrol car. Ray's personal truck, the beat-up F-150 he'd had since before he was elected sheriff. Walter watched from the kitchen window. Ray sat in the truck for a full minute before getting out. No uniform, just flannel shirt and jeans, work boots, the clothes of a friend, not a lawman. Walter opened the door before Ray could knock. They sat at the kitchen table. Walter's mother's embroidered tablecloth, the one with the yellow flowers she'd stitched in 1976, coffee between them, black for both. Old military habit. I was wrong, Walt. Ray's hands circled the mug. Big hands, weathered from 69 years of living. Dead wrong, and I need to tell you why I was such a coward about it. Walter didn't say anything, just waited. Jennifer, my nephew's wife, married to Carol's daughter's husband. Ray paused, untangling the family tree. She called Linda Thursday night, my wife, said she needed to talk to me about something that was bothering her. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, evening settling in cold and clear. Christmas dinner at our house, Ray continued. Big extended family thing. Jennifer overheard Carol and Stephanie talking in the kitchen. Carol was bragging. That's the word Jennifer used. Bragging about Marcus and our plan, about their new life in Florida, about how Marcus was the successful twin and you were just... He stopped. Jennifer said Carol sounded happy, excited. Walter's jaw tightened. Jennifer didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't want to cause family drama. But after Wednesday, after she heard about the second bank visit, Ray looked up. Her conscience wouldn't let her stay quiet. She told me everything Friday morning. And you waited until tonight to tell me. I spent Friday and Saturday running Marcus's background. Ray pulled papers from his jacket pocket. Off the books at first, because I was ashamed it took me this long. Georgia warrant from 2019, $45,000. Identity fraud and forgery. Alabama warrant from 2021, $67,000. Same pattern. Befriend a lonely spouse, forge documents, flee before anyone catches on. He spread the warrant printouts on the tablecloth. Last known address was Atlanta, 2018. Then he vanished. Until he showed up here. Ray's voice got quiet. This isn't a marital dispute, Walt. This is a career criminal running a long con. And I almost let him get away with it because I was more worried about Thanksgiving dinner being awkward. And Walter picked up the Georgia warrant, looked at his brother's face in the booking photo. Same face as his own, but Marcus was smiling. Even in a mugshot, he was smiling. You remember that case I mentioned? Ray asked. The one from '87? Woman claiming her husband stole her inheritance. Helen Pritchard. She came into my office 3 times. 3 times she told me her husband was forging her signature, accessing her mother's estate. I thought she was just bitter about the divorce, didn't investigate proper. Ray's hands tightened around the mug. He fled to Texas with $90,000. Helen died alone in '93, never got a penny back. I think about her every time I see a case like this. That wasn't your fault. It was exactly my fault. I chose the easy path. Told myself it was civil court territory, not my problem. Ray met Walter's eyes. I've been carrying that for 27 years. I'll be damned if I carry you too. The coffee had gone cold between them. Neither man had taken a sip. We saved each other's ass in that training accident, Ray said. July '79. You remember? You pulled me out of that Humvee before it rolled. And you kept me from bleeding out until the medics arrived. Ray's voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. That's a bond, Walt. 30 years of friendship, that means something. Should have meant something 3 days ago when you came to my office. Your nephew's going to be furious. Probably. Thanksgiving might be awkward for a few years. Ray almost smiled. But I can live with awkward Thanksgivings. Can't live with being the kind of man who lets his friend get robbed because family politics are inconvenient. Walter felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been tight since Thursday. I officially reopened this as a criminal investigation this afternoon, Ray said. Called the FBI field office in Jacksonville. Talked to Agent Torres. She's good people, already working the interstate angle. He pulled out more papers. And I contacted the federal prosecutor. Harold Chen, been doing white-collar crime for 20 years. He's very interested. Federal prosecutor. Identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, elder exploitation. We're looking at 5 to 10 years each if convicted. Ray laid out the paperwork like evidence. I put a hold on that Florida title company sale. Criminal investigation notice. Farm sale is stopped dead until this is resolved. Walter looked at the documents, official seals, case numbers. The machinery of justice finally turning. Marcus and Carol are still in Tampa, Ray said. I've been tracking their social media. They're posting pictures at beach restaurants, shopping, spending money, your money. Arrogant. Criminals always get cocky. That's when we catch them. Ray finished his cold coffee in one swallow. Torres is coordinating with Tampa field office. They've got surveillance on the apartment. Soon as we've got the warrants signed, we move. How soon? Chen thinks by Thursday we'll have enough for arrest warrants. Friday at the latest. Ray stood up, started gathering the papers. Torres asked if you want to be present for the arrests. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. Walter walked him to the door. The night was cold and clear, stars bright like they only get in February when the air's clean and dry. I'm sorry I doubted you, Walt. Ray's hand on the doorframe. Won't happen again. I know. After Ray left, Walter sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, the coffee mug still on the table. The warrant printouts, the case files. 3 decades of friendship had won out over 1 week of family politics. The law was finally listening. The federal government was involved. Marcus and Carol were still free, still spending his money, still posting on Facebook like they'd already won. But the trap was set. The machinery was moving. When the law finally moves, can it move fast enough to catch thieves already counting their winnings? Tuesday morning, Ryan Walsh called with news about the Masonic ring. Pawn shop in Atlanta, Walsh said. April 2012. Your brother pawned a ring matching the description, 14K gold, Masonic symbols, engraved JTB, 1947. They still have the electronic records. Marcus's ID was on file. Walter was in the workshop, sanding a table leg he'd been working on for 3 weeks. His hands stilled on the wood. He got $340 for it, Walsh continued. Never came back to redeem it. The ring's long gone now, sold to a collector in 2013. But the pawn record proves he had access to your house as early as 2012. The ring he was wearing at the bank, counterfeit. Agent Torres had it analyzed after he was arrested. Cheap knockoff, probably cost $50 online. So Marcus had stolen their father's ring 12 years ago, pawned it for drinking money, probably, then bought a fake to wear like a trophy. This helps our timeline, Walsh said. Shows long-term planning, not opportunistic theft, premeditation going back over a decade. By Wednesday, the evidence was piling up like snow in a blizzard. Agent Torres called with updates every few hours. The Clearwater apartment lease, December 2023, both names, Carol's signature real, Walter's forged. Utility bills going back 13 months. 4 credit cards opened using Walter's identity, combined limits of $180,000. Carol had co-signed 3 of them. Her participation is documented, Torres said. This wasn't coercion. She made active choices. Wednesday afternoon, they discovered the farm sale closing. Tampa Commerce Bank, Friday morning at 10 a.m. Marcus had an appointment using the forged power of attorney, ready to sign over 320 acres for $800,000. We'll get them at the bank, Torres said. Let them think they're winning right up until the handcuffs go on. Thursday afternoon, federal prosecutor Harold Chen called. Walter was outside, fixing a fence post that had been leaning since January. Warrants are signed, Chen said. Multiple counts for both defendants. Identity theft under 18 U.S.C. or 1028, wire fraud, conspiracy, forgery. We've got them cold. When? Tomorrow morning. Tampa field office is coordinating. They'll be arrested at the bank right before the transaction. Chen paused. Agent Torres asked if you wanted to be present. You have every right to witness this. Walter looked out at the farm. His father's land, the fields that had been Brennan property since 1947. The barn where his daddy had taught him to use a level, to measure twice, to do things right. No, Walter said. I've already spent enough time on them. I want to move forward, not watch them go down. That shows character, Mr. Brennan. Most victims want front row seats. After Chen hung up, Walter went back to the fence post, set it right, tamped the dirt down firm. Some things you just did because they needed doing, not because anyone was watching. Friday at 11:47 a.m., Torres called. We have them in custody, Mr. Brennan. Walter was at the kitchen table, coffee and the newspaper, trying to pretend it was a normal Friday morning. Marcus was at the desk, signing documents as Walter Brennan when our agents walked in. Carol was in the waiting area. She had your forged power of attorney in her purse. Torres's voice held satisfaction. No resistance. Both were cooperative once they realized what was happening. What did Marcus say? Asked our agents, and I quote, how did he beat me? I'm smarter than him. And a pause. Agent Rodriguez told him criminals always underestimate patience. Oh, Walter smiled despite himself. Carol cried, Torres added. Didn't say anything, wouldn't look at Marcus. And they transported them separately to federal holding. By Friday evening, the local news had the story. Eddie stopped by with a six-pack and the news on his phone. Identical twins. Identity theft. Elderly victim, the headline read. Elderly, Walter muttered. I'm 67, not decrepit. Says anyone over 65, Eddie said, grinning. You and me both, friend. Saturday, the story went regional. Sunday, it went national. CBS was interested, something about the twin angle being compelling. Reporters started calling. Walter ignored every one of them. Ray put out a statement on his behalf. Mr. Brennan appreciates the community's support and requests privacy as the legal process continues. Denise did one interview, short and sweet. Mr. Brennan's patience taught me courage. That's all anyone needs to know. Sunday afternoon, Marcus and Carol were extradited back to county jail. Federal charges would stand, but state charges were added too, faster to prosecute locally first. Both got assigned public defenders initially. Then Marcus's cousin, somebody Walter hadn't heard from in 40 years, posted bail. $250,000 each. Ankle monitors. No contact orders. Travel restricted to the county. Carol's daughter, Stephanie, refused to help. Refused to even take her mother's calls, Ray said. That marriage to Ray's nephew was already showing cracks. Monday, released on bail conditions. Tuesday, preliminary hearing scheduled. 2 p.m. at the county courthouse. The same courthouse where Walter had married Carol in June 1988. Justice of the Peace ceremony. 15 people in attendance. Hopeful and young and stupid. Full circle. Sunday evening, Walter met with Harold Chen in his office. Reviewed testimony points. Practice on staying calm, answering questions directly. Just tell the truth in your own words, Chen said. Don't embellish, don't get angry. The facts speak for themselves. But Chen explained the defense strategy. Marcus's attorney, some expensive lawyer named David Roth from Cincinnati, was planning to paint Walter as controlling and financially abusive. They'll say Carol was a victim of your manipulation, that Marcus was helping her escape. That dog won't hunt, Walter said. No, it won't. Not with 14 years of documented planning. But they'll try. Chen smiled. Your calm delivery will destroy that narrative. You just have to be yourself. Monday morning, Walter pulled his suit from the closet. Navy blue, the one he'd worn to his father's funeral in 1998. Still fit, still dignified. He went to the workshop, touched the tools, the wood grain smooth under his palm. This was what mattered. Building things right, taking time, being precise. Tomorrow he'd face Carol across a courtroom. Marcus, too, with his smirk and his counterfeit ring and his question, how did he beat me? The answer was simple. Patience. Documentation. Truth. But simple didn't mean easy. Monday evening, Walter sat in the quiet house. Carol's empty closet. Her coffee mug still in the cupboard. He couldn't throw it away yet. Wasn't ready. Tomorrow, the courthouse. Tomorrow, the truth told in public. Tomorrow, standing up and saying, I'm Walter Brennan, and this is my name. Could patience and paperwork really beat liars and lawyers? He'd find out at 2 p.m. The county courthouse was built in 1889, all marble floors and high ceilings that made voices echo. Tuesday at 2 p.m., courtroom B was packed. Walter arrived 15 minutes early. The gallery was already full, 50 seats, everyone taken. Media in the front rows, sketch artists with her pad, reporters with notepads. Behind them, townspeople. Eddie, Mrs. Henderson, Joanne. Even some folks Walter didn't recognize, just curious about the identical twin case. Ray sat in the third row, uniform on, official support. Denise was beside him, hands folded in her lap, reading glasses on their chain. Walter took his seat at the prosecutor's table. Harold Chin was already there, documents organized in precise stacks. At 2:10, Marcus walked in with his attorney. David Roth was mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who probably charged $500 an hour. Marcus wore a suit too, provided by his lawyer, probably, because it fit too well to be anything Marcus owned. His Florida tan stood out in the February pale courtroom, hairstyled, confident stride. At 2:12, Carol entered with her attorney, Melissa Hartwick. Carol wore a simple blue dress, hair different than Walter remembered, shorter, darker. She looked at the floor, found her seat at the defense table, wouldn't look at anyone. Marcus and Carol sat at opposite ends, not speaking, not looking at each other. At 2:15, the bailiff stood. All rise, the Honorable Judge Patricia Whitmore presiding. Judge Whitmore was 70 years old, third-generation county judge. She'd grown up in Millbrook, remembered when the bank still knew every customer by name. Her reputation was fair and sharp in equal measure. She took her seat, surveyed the courtroom with eyes that missed nothing. Be seated. Chin's opening was 3 minutes, methodical, factual. Your Honor, this is organized theft, identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy spanning 14 years, not a marital dispute, organized crime. Roth's opening was 5 minutes, theatrical. Your Honor, Walter Brennan was a controlling husband, financially abusive. My client Carol sought help from his brother Marcus to escape a toxic situation. What the prosecution calls theft was actually a desperate woman trying to reclaim her own life, the gallery murmured. Judge Whitmore's gavel came down once. Silence. The people call Walter Brennan. Walter's hand rested on the Bible. His father's Bible, the one given to him in 1975 when he joined the Guard. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. The witness stand was wood, old and solid. Walter sat, looked at Chin, didn't look at Marcus or Carol. Mr. Brennan, please tell the court about your career. Installed bank security systems for 40 years, started in 1978, retired in 2018. Vault systems mostly. Did work for First National, among others, as in you've been a customer at First National since 1978, 46 years. Chen walked him through it chronologically. The farm inheritance in 1998. Marcus's exclusion from the will. The marriage to Carol in 1988. The February morning phone call. What happened when you arrived at the bank? My brother was wearing my church suit, had a cashier's check for $47,000. The new manager asked me for ID to prove which account was mine. How did that make you feel? I'd been banking there since that manager was in diapers. It felt like being erased. The gallery was silent. Even the sketch artist had stopped moving. Chen presented documents, birth certificate, military records, 40 years of tax returns, the signature comparison sheets. Can you explain these signatures to the court? Top row is mine. Bottom row is my brother's forgeries. He practiced copying our mother's signature when we were kids. Used to forge permission slips, same technique, just refined over time. Roth stood for cross-examination, circled like a shark. Mr. Brennan, isn't it true your wife felt neglected? That may be. Doesn't give her the right to steal my name. You spent more time in your workshop than with her, didn't you? I worked 40 years, came home every night. That's not a crime. You controlled the finances, made all the decisions. We had joint accounts. She had access to everything. Walter's voice stayed level until she used it to leave. Roth tried for 20 minutes. Couldn't shake him. Couldn't make him angry. Couldn't get him to crack. Judge Whitmore was leaning forward, taking notes. No further questions. Denise took the stand at 3:15, carried her box of records like it was the Hope Diamond. Chen walked her through 15 years of documentation, the inquiry logs, Marcus's progressive signature practice, Derek's ignored fraud alerts. Why did you keep these records, Ms. Morrison? Because something felt wrong. Management said I was paranoid. Denise adjusted her glasses. I said I was thorough. Roth tried to attack her motives on cross. You're 5 months from retirement, correct? Protecting your pension. I'm risking my pension to be here. Mr. Roth, some things matter more than money. You kept unauthorized copies of bank records. I kept evidence of crime. I'm glad I did. The gallery murmured approval. Judge Whitmore didn't gavel this time, just made a note. At 4:02, Chen called for a recess, 15 minutes. In the hallway, Walter saw Carol and Hartwick in urgent conversation, Hartwick doing most of the talking, Carol nodding, shoulders curved inward. At 4:15, they reconvened. Your Honor, Hartwick stood. My client wishes to enter a plea. The courtroom went silent. Carol stood. Read from a prepared statement, voice shaking. I'm sorry for my actions. I accept responsibility for what I've done. I agree to cooperate with the prosecution in exchange for a reduced sentence. She didn't look at Walter, not once during the statement. But as she sat down, their eyes met, just for a second, and Walter saw it, recognition. She saw what she'd destroyed. Saw the 14 years of planning and lying, saw the man she'd married and betrayed, saw it all clearly for maybe the first time. Then she looked away. Marcus exploded. Carol, what are you doing? We had a plan. Mr. Marcus Brennan, control yourself, Judge Whitmore said, voice sharp. Marcus turned to Roth, loud enough for the first row to hear. How did he beat me? I'm smarter than him. The facade cracked. The smooth charm peeled away. Underneath was just a narcissist who couldn't comprehend losing to his boring brother. Judge Whitmore gavelled once, hard. I've reviewed the evidence thoroughly. Her voice carried through the courtroom. This is not marital discord. This is organized theft, conspiracy, elder exploitation spanning over a decade. She looked at Walter. Walter Brennan's testimony was credible, documented, and truthful. The evidence supports every claim. I find probable cause for all charges to proceed to trial. She looked at Marcus. Bail is revoked due to flight risk. Remanded to custody pending trial. She looked at Carol. The court accepts your plea. Sentencing in 60 days. The gavel came down. It was 5:15 p.m. Late February sun broke through the courthouse windows, dust motes dancing in the light. The courthouse steps were cold. Media swarmed like bees. Mr. Brennan, how do you feel about your wife and brother going to jail? Walter stood there, looked at the courthouse, the building where he'd married Carol 37 years ago, where he'd just reclaimed his name. I feel like my name's my own again, he said. That's enough. He walked toward his truck. Ray was there, Denise too, and someone else. A woman standing by the parking lot, uncertainty in her posture. Sarah, his daughter, flew in from Ohio, apparently. She'd been in the back of the gallery. He hadn't even seen her. Dad. Her voice cracked. I should have called back. I'm sorry. Walter's throat was too tight to speak. Just nodded. She crossed the distance, hugged him, awkward and brief and genuine. I saw the news. Got on a plane yesterday. She pulled back, looked at him. I should have believed you from the start. You're here now, Walter managed. Eddie approached with a handshake. Mrs. Henderson with an apology. Joanne promising to bring casserole tomorrow. The media got their footage and left. The crowd dispersed. Walter stood in the parking lot with his daughter, his old friend Ray, Denise, who'd risked everything. The sun was setting, spring was coming, the farm was his. Can you rebuild from ashes when you're almost 70? Or is this just the end with paperwork? Sarah's hand found his arm. Can we get coffee, Dad? Maybe dinner. I'm staying through the weekend. I'd like that, Walter said. Maybe rebuilding looked like this. Small steps, one coffee at a time. They went to the diner on Main Street, Ruthie's, same place that had been serving coffee and pie since 1967. Sarah ordered decaf. Walter got regular, black. The booth vinyl was cracked in places, patched with duct tape. The menu hadn't changed in 20 years. I saw the news coverage Saturday, Sarah said, stirring cream into her coffee. On CBS, they called it the twin identity theft case. Made it sound like a movie. Didn't feel like a movie. No, I imagine not. She looked at her coffee. I got 7 voicemails from you, February through March. I didn't call back. Walter waited. Let her talk. Carol always... Sarah paused, choosing words carefully. She made it clear I wasn't welcome after you two got married. Nothing overt, just little comments. Your father and I are building our own life now. Maybe you should visit less often. Give us space. She laughed, bitter. After a while, I stopped trying, stopped calling, let the distance grow. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? You needed help and I didn't answer. Her eyes were wet. Tom and I both, we let you go because it was easier than dealing with her. The waitress brought pie, apple for Sarah, cherry for Walter. They ate in silence for a minute. Tom still isn't ready to talk, Sarah said. He's angrier than me. Feels worse about it, I think. He'll come around when he's ready. You always were patient. Sarah smiled a little. Mom used to say you were stubborn. I think she meant patient, but didn't want to admit it. And Walter's first wife, Sarah's mother, that was a lifetime ago. A different man. I have something I'm building, Walter said. In the workshop, for Emma. Her graduation present. Emma would love that. She's always talking about you. Asks why we don't visit Grandpa more. Sarah's voice broke. I didn't have a good answer. Well, bring her out. Maybe, before graduation. Really? Got a guest room sitting empty. Your old room, actually. Still has that quilt your grandmother made. Sarah reached across the table, squeezed his hand. I'd like that, Dad. I'd really like that. They talked until the diner closed at 9, made plans for the next day, breakfast, then Sarah would drive back to Ohio. She had to work Monday. But I'll come back in May, she promised. With the kids, Emma and Jacob. They should know their grandfather. Walter drove home alone. The house was dark. Carol's absence was everywhere. The empty closet, her coffee mug still in the cupboard, the spot where her rocking chair used to sit by the window. But it felt different now. Less like abandonment, more like space. Space to breathe, space to heal. March came in with a thaw, temperature climbing above freezing for the first time in weeks. The farm title came back cleared, all liens removed, property secured. Restitution orders were issued for $227,000, though Chen said collecting would be unlikely. They'll be broke by the time they get out, Chen told Walter over the phone. But the orders stand. If they ever get money, you're first in line. Marcus's trial was set for April. 4 days in court. Carol testified against him. Hartwick made sure of that, part of the plea deal. The jury came back in 3 hours, guilty on all counts, sentencing 8 years federal prison. After that, Georgia and Alabama had warrants waiting. Walter didn't attend the trial, didn't need to. Chen called with updates, but Walter was already moving forward. Carol's sentencing came in late April. 3 years supervised probation, 1,000 hours of community service, 50,000 in restitution, and mandatory counseling. Hartwick called to let Walter know Carol wanted him to know she was sorry. I heard her in court, Walter said. That's enough. He didn't go to her sentencing either. The workshop became his refuge again, not hiding, healing. He finished the table he'd been sanding in February, started a bookshelf for Sarah's house, and the hope chest. Cherry wood, dovetail joints, brass hinges polished until they shone, cedar lining fitted with precision. He worked on it every afternoon, measuring twice, cutting once, doing it right. Inside the lid, he carved a message. For Emma, build your life with care, measure twice. Love, Grandpa, 2024. Denise started coming by Tuesdays for lunch. She'd bring sandwiches from the diner, they'd eat in the workshop, talk about books and grandkids and town gossip, never about the trial. That was behind them. She got promoted at the bank. Branch security consultant. Turns out paranoia pays, she joked. Thoroughness, Walter corrected. There's a difference. Ray came by Thursday mornings for coffee. They'd sit at the kitchen table, talk about National Guard days, plan a fishing trip for summer. Ray's nephew's situation was improving, slowly. They'd nodded to each other at the hardware store last week. Not friends yet, but civil. Thanksgiving might not be awkward after all, Ray said. Give it another year. And you did the right thing, Walter told him. That's what matters. Church was easier now. Fourth Sunday in April, Walter sat in his usual pew. Eddie saved him a seat. Mrs. Henderson apologized formally after the service. We should have known better, Walter. We should have believed you. Joanne brought a casserole Tuesday afternoon. Just because, she said, and because I'm sorry I looked away when you needed friends. The town remembered. The town forgave. Small-town memory was long, but small-town grace was real too. Late April, the hope chest was finished. Walter ran his hand over the smooth cherry wood, checked the brass hinges one more time. Perfect. He wrapped it in canvas, tied it with twine, set it in the corner of the workshop. Saturday morning, his phone rang. Sarah. We're coming May 2nd, she said. Emma's so excited she can barely sleep. Jacob keeps asking if you'll teach him woodworking. Tell him to bring work gloves. Got plenty of projects waiting. Dad? Sarah's voice went soft. Thank you for not giving up on us. On me. You're my daughter. That doesn't change. After they hung up, Walter stood in the workshop. Spring sunlight slanting through the windows. Cardinals nesting in the barn eaves. He could hear them singing, building their home. The farm was secure. His name was his own. The people who'd stolen from him were facing consequences. The daughter who'd been lost was coming home, bringing his grandkids. Not everything was fixed. Tom still hadn't called. Carol's coffee mug was still in the cupboard because Walter couldn't bring himself to throw it away. The house was quiet in ways it had never been quiet before, but quiet wasn't the same as lonely. Not anymore? Quiet was space to breathe, space to build, space to heal. He looked at the hope chest, wrapped and ready. Looked at the tools on the wall, his father's level, his own handsaw, everything maintained and organized and ready for the next project. Some things you just got back to being yourself and trusted the rest to sort itself out in time. May was coming, Sarah was coming, the grandkids were coming. That was enough. That was everything. May 1st arrived with temperatures in the 60s and the smell of fresh-cut grass. Walter spent the morning preparing, guest bedrooms cleaned, fresh sheets on the beds. The room that used to be Sarah's still had her grandmother's quilt, blue and white squares stitched in 1983. Carol's old room was a guest room now. Walter had cleared out her things in March, donated most of it, kept a few photos for Sarah. The space felt different without her presence. Better, somehow. Like a house that could breathe again. He stocked the pantry. Sarah had mentioned Emma was trying vegetarian, so he got ingredients for salads and pasta. Jacob ate anything, apparently, but preferred his grandmother's chocolate chip cookies. Walter's mother's recipe was in the kitchen drawer, written in her handwriting on a grease-stained index card. The farm looked good. Fences repaired, fields mowed. The barn door, that had been sticking all winter, finally planed down and rehung. Spring work, the kind that marked seasons changing and life continuing. In the workshop, Walter unwrapped the hope chest one more time, ran his hand over the smooth cherry wood. The brass hinges caught the afternoon light. The cedar lining smelled fresh and clean. Inside the lid, his carved message, for Emma, build your life with care, measure twice. Love, Grandpa, 2024. He wrapped it again, set it in the corner, ready. Denise stopped by with a pie. For tomorrow's dinner, she said. Apple, Emma's favorite according to Sarah. No, how'd you know that? Called her last week. Wanted to make sure I was bringing the right thing. Denise smiled. You look peaceful, Walt. Really peaceful. Getting there, Walter said. Takes time. That it does. Ray came by that evening, stood on the porch with coffee, watching the sunset. Big day tomorrow, Ray said. Feels like it. You nervous? Walter considered. Little bit. Been a long time since I had family in this house. Since it felt like family anyway. They're lucky to have you. I'm lucky they're giving me another chance. They stood in comfortable silence, crickets starting up in the grass, the first fireflies of the season blinking near the tree line. Nephew and I had lunch yesterday, Ray said. First time since the trial. It was awkward as hell, but we managed. That's progress. Small steps. Ray finished his coffee. That's all any of us can do. Small steps forward. May 2nd, 2 p.m., Sarah's Honda pulled into the driveway. Walter was on the porch. Had been there since 1:30, pretending to read the newspaper, checking his watch every 5 minutes like a kid, waiting for Christmas. Emma got out first. 17, tall, confident, her mother's eyes and her grandmother's smile. She wore jeans and a college sweatshirt, Ohio State, where she'd be going in the fall. Jacob came next. 14, quieter, looking around the farm with open curiosity. Sarah last, slower, watching Walter's face. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetheart. Emma crossed the yard first. Grandpa. She hugged him, strong and sure. Mom showed me pictures, but you're taller than I remembered. You were 6 last time I saw you. Everyone's taller than a 6-year-old. Jacob shook his hand, formal and polite. Nice to meet you, sir. And Walter's fine. Or Grandpa, if you want. He gestured to the farm. Want a tour? They walked the property. Walter showed them the fields, explained the crop rotation his father had started in 1952, showed them the tree line, planted in 1960, oak and maple, now 64 years old and strong. Jacob had questions about everything. How deep were the wells? What kind of soil? How many acres exactly? Emma was quieter, taking it in, touched the barnwood, ran her hand along the fence rails. This is what Mom grew up around? She asked. Some of it, she lived in town mostly, but she spent summers here, helped with hay season. I don't remember that. She never talks about it. And sometimes people forget good things when they're angry, Walter said. Doesn't mean the good things didn't happen. The workshop was last. Walter let them explore. Jacob went straight to the tools, asking about the table saw, the drill press, the hand planes organized by size. Emma found the hope chest in the corner. What's this? Your graduation present. Walter unwrapped the canvas. Wasn't sure I'd get to give it to you in person. Glad I can. She touched the cherry wood. Opened the lid. Saw the carved message. Read it twice. Grandpa, her voice cracked. This is... You made this for me. For college. Somewhere to keep what matters. Letters from home. Pictures. Things that are important. Cedar keeps everything fresh. Smell stays good. Emma traced the carved words with her finger. Build your life with care. Measure twice. I'll keep it forever, she said, tears running down her face now. I promise. Forever. Sarah was in the doorway, watching, crying too. Walter's throat was tight. Just nodded. Dinner was at 6. Sarah cooked. Her mother's pot roast recipe, ironically, but nobody mentioned that. Denise came with her pie. Ray brought coffee cake from the bakery. The table was full for the first time in months, maybe years. They told stories. Ray talked about Walter in the National Guard, young and stubborn. Denise told about the time Walter fixed the bank's vault door when the professional service couldn't, figured it out in 20 minutes with a level and patience. Emma asked about the farm's history. Walter pulled out the photo albums, pictures of his father on a tractor in 1960, his mother in the garden, the barn raising in 1965. Jacob asked if he could learn woodworking this summer. Got plenty of projects, Walter said. Can start with a birdhouse. Work up to bigger things. You free in July? I can be. Then it's a plan. After dinner, they sat on the porch. May evening, warm and clear. Cardinals singing in the trees. The farm stretching out in the twilight, peaceful and green. Emma sat next to Walter on the porch swing. Didn't say anything. Just sat there, close. Sarah caught his eye. Mouthed, thank you. Walter nodded. There weren't words for this, for family that had been broken, finding its way back together, for second chances, and hope chests and cherrywood that would last a lifetime. May 3rd, morning, breakfast together, then loading the car. Emma's hope chest carefully wrapped in blankets in the trunk. We'll be back in June, Sarah said, for graduation, if that's okay. More than okay. And July, Jacob added, for the woodworking. I'll have materials ready. Emma hugged him last, held on longer than the others. I love you, Grandpa. Walter's voice failed. Just held her, let go when she pulled back. He watched them drive away. Stood in the driveway until the car disappeared down County Road 9. The house was quiet when he went back inside. But it was a different quiet now, not empty, just peaceful. Mid-May, the routine settled in. Coffee at 5:30, NPR on the radio, workshop by 7, Denise on Tuesdays, Ray on Thursdays. Church on Sundays, 5th row right, Eddie saving him a seat. The bank sent a formal apology letter, corporate letterhead, legal language, basically admitting they'd screwed up. Walter framed it, hung it in the workshop as a reminder that institutions were only as good as the people running them. Derek had been reassigned to a branch in Indianapolis. Tom, the regional manager, was fired. Denise's promotion was working. She was changing the culture, one training session at a time. Carol's divorce papers arrived in the mail. Walter signed them without reading. Sent them back the same day. Her belongings were still in boxes in the garage. Someday he'd deal with them. Not yet. Her coffee mug was still in the cupboard. Maybe it would stay there. Maybe not. Some decisions didn't need to be rushed. Tom, his son, sent a text message. Short, saw the news. Glad you're okay, Dad. Walter replied. Thanks, his son. Doors open when you're ready. Small steps. That's all anyone could ask. Late May afternoon, Walter in the workshop, building the bookshelf for Sarah's house. Oak this time, sturdy and practical. The radio played low, NPR doing a story about farming subsidies. The spring sun came through the windows, warming the sawdust-scented air. His hands moved steady on the wood plane. Smooth, rhythmic strokes, shavings curling up thin and perfect. Outside, the cardinals were nesting in the barn eaves. A new generation being raised in the same place generations before had been raised. The farm was his. The name was his, the legacy was secure. Sarah was coming back in June. Emma would have her hope chest at college in August. Jacob would learn to use a chisel and square in July. Walter Brennan knew who he was again. That was enough. That was everything. There are things you learn about yourself when everything gets stripped away. Walter learned he was patient, not because he was calm by nature, but because patience was the only tool that worked when charm and lies had all the advantages. He learned that your name isn't what's written on bank accounts or property deeds. It's what you know about yourself when you're alone in a workshop at 3 a.m, hands on cold wood, wondering if truth matters when nobody's listening. Turns out it does. Truth is patient. It outlasts performance every time. Identity isn't what other people believe about you. It's what you do when no one's watching, how you treat the tools, how you measure the wood, how you keep your promises to yourself. Marcus never understood that. He thought being smarter meant he'd win. But intelligence without character is just a sharp knife with no handle. Cuts everything it touches, including the person holding it. Walter learned about loneliness too. Real loneliness isn't being alone. It's being in a room full of people who don't believe you. It's watching institutions fail, watching friends choose comfort over courage, watching a marriage dissolve like sugar in hot coffee. But he learned the other side of that coin. The people who showed up when everyone else left. Denise risking her pension, Ray choosing justice over family peace, Sarah flying in from Ohio, those were the people who mattered. Not the crowd, the few. Some things rebuild slower than they break. Trust takes years to build and seconds to shatter, but that doesn't mean you stop building. Sarah was proof of that. So was the hope chest sitting in Emma's dorm room, holding her important things: a grandfather's love, carved in cherry wood. The farm would stay Brennan land. 4 generations of sweat in that soil, and it would keep going. Not because Walter fought for it, though he did, but because some legacies are bigger than the people trying to steal them. Early June morning. Walter sat on the porch with his coffee, watching the sun come up over the east field. Steam rising from the mug, curling in the cool air. The Cardinals were singing the same song they'd sung for 67 springs before this one, the same song they'd sing long after Walter was gone. Denise was coming by for lunch. Ray for coffee, Thursday, Sarah next weekend for Emma's graduation. The workshop waited, patient as always. The bookshelf for Sarah was nearly done. After that, maybe a toy chest for Jacob. Something simple, something built right. Walter's hands were steady on the coffee mug, calloused from 67 years of living, building, fixing, holding on. His father's hands had looked the same at this age. His grandfather's too, probably. Some things pass down. Not just land or money or names. The way you hold a level. The way you check your work. The way you measure twice because doing it right matters more than doing it fast. Marcus was in federal prison. Carol was on probation. The people who'd tried to erase him were facing consequences. But Walter wasn't thinking about them anymore. He was thinking about the Cardinals song, the coffee's warmth, the way morning light hit the barn at just the right angle, the sound of tires on gravel when family came home. The hope chest had made it to Ohio State safely. Emma sent a picture, sitting in her dorm room, lid open, already filling it with memories. Build your life with care. Measure twice. Simple wisdom. The kind you learn from wood and time and patient hands. Walter finished his coffee, set the mug down, stood up, joints creaking, age reminding him he wasn't young, but he was himself. Walter James Brennan. Name secure, legacy passing on, truth proven. The workshop door was open, the tools waited, time to build.